this is where we left off last week. So I'm going to make some changes to this. So I'm going to take all these variables out, and I'm going to take this out too. Instead of having any I'm going to create an object based off of just the method. So we're going to do the same thing we had before, and we're going to keep the same hierarchy. Remember, the hierarchy was employee, someone, and we had bunch of classes below that. Every single one of them is an employee. Then we have janitor, and then we had legal. I think we only had secretary, and then we had lawyer. I think that's the one we had, and then we had one more, which was legal secretary. So who is the most parent class in this hierarchy? So employees that right now is the most parent class. Remember, there's always object class, but since it's not shown in the diagram, the employee is the most parent class. So employee is the parent for which three classes? Janitor, lawyer, and secretary. And which ones are the child class? Which ones are the child classes? Or could be called a child class? Legal secretary is a child of secretary, yep. And janitor, lawyer, and secretary. So janitor, lawyer, and secretary, they're still child classes of employee, but also legal secretary is a child also to secretary. So which all that makes sense. So now we're gonna add code and we're gonna add functions. So let's say we do getters function. So we're gonna do get function would be public, and this is gonna return in vacation days, right? Vacation days. So instead of adding attributes, I'm going to just add, this is just for the example. So, because we're going to be overriding all the functions in the child and grandchild classes, we'll see how that works. So in this one, it's going to be vacation days, and all I'm going to do is return 40. So you get 40 hours, 5 days. And then all employees get this, and we have a string, and this would be vacation form. Which form would they be filling out? And we're just going to return. Then we had vacation days, we had vacation form, and salary. So that would be double get salary. And the salary that would return, let's say the base salary is 40,000. So that would go for all the employees unless it's been overwritten in any of the child classes. And here we can get rid of the public keyword because every single method inside is public unless it's specifically identified as private or protected. So now we have a lawyer class. A lawyer, obviously, they don't get the base salary, they actually get more. So what we can do is this is going to be int, double get salary. And this one we return, let's say 90. Secretary, that makes get salary, and let's say they make return and they make 60, right? And the janitor, let's say they actually make the base salary, so they actually get 40. If that's the case, we actually don't need to declare anything. We don't need to override that main. We don't need to override this method at all. And if legal secretary is making more than secretary, then we need to override it. Otherwise, if you call get salary for legal secretary, what would be returned? What the value would be returned if we call get salary for legal secretary? 40,000. Remember, legal secretary is coming from secretary, right? So what that's going to do, we're calling get salary from here is going to go one up and get the salary here. Whatever the salary is here, that's the one that's going to be returned. If we didn't override this, if we didn't have this function in here, then it would go back up and get the salary from employee. But right now we did override it, get salary method, and it's going to return 60. So let me actually add those changing. Somebody in the waiting room, sorry. So this is 40,000, right? And then we have 5 days, and then we have pink form. I think we only have 3. And then when we come to janitor, we didn't override anything. When we come to lawyer, lawyer makes 90,000. That's the one thing we overrode. And secretary makes 60,000. So make a mistake, let me know, but I think this is what we have done so far. The employee is the base for all of them, and that is 5 days pink form. So now if I have an instance of legal secretary, so let's go ahead and do that. So we have legal secretary equals to new legal secretary, and we do secretary dot get salary. What would that return? So I'm gonna have to put that in system dot out the print line. All right. So now what would this return? 60. Yep. So we just went over that. That should return 60. Let's test it out. That gets 60. Even though legal secretary doesn't have anything in there, it's going up one level and getting it from secretary class. Go back to main and let's do get vacation. Get secretary get vacation days. So what would that return? 5. So even though secretary doesn't have that method, it goes up to employee. Oh, I closed it. So employee, it goes up to employee and get that method, vacation days right here. So when we run it, we get 5 days. So right now, all the employees are getting 5 days. So now we can come in here and we can actually do int get vacation days, and we do return. Can you show lawyer 1 second? Yes. Lawyer is this. We're just we don't have any attributes. We don't have any constructor. We just have methods. We're just playing around with methods. And in that event, if you have something like this, we don't need a constructor or anything or attributes. So we're playing around with numbers and methods here. All right. So what would this return? Legal secretary vacation days. If you come into legal secretary, I have vacation days here. But the super class to legal secretary, remember this would be super secretary would be super for legal secretary. This doesn't have vacation days. What would happen if I run this now? So what would be printed? 5. So it's actually what happens is, remember, should get 10. I have this wrong. I've been trying to override it. So now even the secretary doesn't have that function, but the super class of secretary has it. Remember, all these functions are imported into each of these classes, all 3 of these classes, janitor, lawyer, and secretary. Once you override it, then that function is replaced. So what's happening is it's doing control, right click, control copy, and pasting it in each of these classes in the background. And once I override it, it deletes the old function and puts the new function in. So if the legal secretary has it, that means secretary also has a function that's coming from the super class, which is the employee, but we are overriding it here. So all these 3 things gets copied to secretary, then those 3 things gets copied to legal secretary. Does that make sense? So this is basically what inheritance is. So you have it in one place, one class. Every single one is every single thing is being copied, unless you override it. All those methods exist in all of them. If you have 100 levels of inheritance, you have more secretary, different types of secretary. You keep going down. Legal 1 secretary, legal 2 secretary, or immigration secretary, or something like that. Different levels of secretary. All these employee things will be copied into it. So now you have lawyer salary. Let's say the company comes in and they want to increase the base salary by 10,000. So the base salary goes up by 10,000. Now the lawyer will make 10,000 more, and the secretary will make 10,000 more. In the employee class. So if you change it in the employee, let's go and change that employee. So we're getting everybody getting a $50,000 raise. Now, if I have a lawyer, then system dot out dot println, and we do lawyer dot get salary. This would give me 90, what should give me 90, right? Then I actually have to go back to lawyer and change it again. How can we fix something like this? Does any idea how can we do that? without actually changing the number for each of the class. Could lawyer always get 50,000 over base? Yes. So what we can do is, remember, salary plus 10,000. For where would that go? Remember, we're returning the number here. We're not printing it out. So remember the super keyword? We had a super keyword, right? What does that do? So how did the super keyword work? Gets from the base. So super actually gets from the parent class. So this means this keyword, that means you're getting it from something that exists inside of this class. Super means you're going up one level. So up one level from lawyer would be employee. So you're getting it from employee class. So what we can do is we can do super dot get salary plus 50,000, because that's the difference. That's the difference, right? So this function is coming from employee class right here. And whatever this base salary is, add 50,000 to it. So now we can do the same thing for secretary. Super dot get salary plus what was it, 20,000, I think, the difference. So now if I run it again, I only have to give the raise in the main employee class. All of them are effective. All right, and same thing, you have salary here, and if you had salary here, that would come in from employee and get the raise there. And let's say legal secretary, they get 30,000 more than the base. So what we do is double get salary. We're gonna override that function, and we're gonna do return super dot get salary plus 30,000. So take about 2-3 minutes and add vacation method for lawyer. Lawyers get 10 days more than the base employee days. Right? Add a method that would do that. Same thing for secretary. They get 2 more days. Janitor, they get the same days, and legal secretary, they get, this would be tricky, 5 days more than the employee days. So now we actually made a mistake. Can you go back to legal secretary? Okay, that's where I'm at. Right now, remember, this is the base salary. That's what we're checking. It gets 30,000 more than the base salary, so that we need to change this number to 10, because secretary already making 20 more, and legal makes 10 more than the legal. Remember, this super for legal secretary, this get salary is coming not from employee, it's coming from secretary. Because the super for legal is the secretary. So it's getting this method. So add 3 methods, one for legal secretary, one for secretary, and one for lawyer. And that would be the vacation days. 2 or 3 minutes, and add get vacation days. Or I think it's just vacation days. As soon as you get done adding those 3 methods, just type in done on the chat, or yes, done, anything. So let me know if you're done. So what goes in here? So end vacation days, and what do I type in here? So lawyers get 10 more days than the base employee days. So what would I type in here? Return super plus 10 days. So we're just going to copy the whole method, go to secretary and do the same thing. Vacation days, but in this one you get 2 more days. And come to legal secretary, I'm going to type in the same method, but this one I already have vacation days, sorry. This one, but what number would this be now? Remember, so you're getting 5 more days, but it's not 5, 3. Why is it 3? Because 2 are already added in secretary. So secretary is already added 2. So that's secretary is getting it from the base, which is the employee class. And now we only need to add 3 more to get the total of 5 days. So that's pretty much what inheritance is. You can create more classes, create hierarchy, and as soon as you add one thing I would highly recommend if you're creating inheritance hierarchy is you draw out what I did on the side. The employee is a superclass, and then we have children, and the children's have children's and all that stuff, so you know where each one is. And once you make a change in one of them, and once you call a super in one of the classes, you know which super it is. It's not always the base class, which is the employee class. It's just one above. So constructors, let's go back. What did we do? I think we did bank account and checking. So I'm gonna close everything else. So we had dog, we had Chihuahua and Husky. Let's say we have that. We have one constructor for this, right? And we had one constructor here, and we had one constructor here, right here. So now, if you wanted to, we can have multiple constructor. Right now, the attributes that we only have name. Let's add one more. What else can we add here? So this is the example we did on Monday. So I'm just going to continue on that and explain a little bit about constructor chaining. We did that last week, I think. Age. Let's add age. Int age, and what would that? So int user age, and here we'll define this dot age equals to user age. So now we have one constructor. How many constructors can we have? As many as you define, exactly. So as many as we want, we can have as many as we want. So let's add one more. Let's add a default constructor. So we have a default constructor, and the default constructor is up to us, right? So whatever we want to do, so this name equals to, we say default name, or whatever we want to call it. And this dot age equals to, let's say, only one. That's how we define it. Now we can have one more constructor, and in that constructor, we're only asking the user for the name. So we have string user name, and this one we do this dot name equals to username, and this dot age equals to 0. It's a newborn, and so age is in years. Newborn, we only asking for the name. And then we can have a third constructor, and in here we can define only the age, and we're gonna give it a name. So in this one, we do this dot name equals to default name or anything that you want to give it. I'm just setting the default name, and this dot age equals to whatever the user passed to us. So I'm going to change this to user age. So now we have 4 constructors, right? 4 different constructors. We're giving option to the user to use any one of them, and you'll be able to construct the object. And one thing that is not allowed is something like this. So you cannot do string user age, not string user age is int. This is not allowed. Why is this not allowed? It's already been used. So it does not care about what you name it here. You can name this year, it's still not allowed. It's only looking for the data type. So if the data type here and number of parameters are the same, 2 things, they're the same, that means you have already declared something similar. So that is not allowed. So looking for number of parameters, we have 1, and the data type of that parameter, which is int for both of them. So it says you already have something like that, that is not allowed. So Java is not able to differentiate between those two. That's why this is not allowed. Everything else, it's able to differentiate based off of what parameter is passed. No parameter is passed, I'm going to use this one. String is passed, I'm going to use this one. Int is passed, I'm going to use this one. And string and integer is passed too, I'm going to use this one. And when you go to your child classes, you do not have to import all 4 of them. You only have to import one of them, whichever one. You can import all of them, obviously, but it is not required. You can only, but you are required to import at least one. I don't have it memorized, but I think it would give some kind of error. Right. Welcome back, everybody. let me share my screen again. One last thing I wanted to show you for constructor chaining. I don't think we covered that last week. I think we covered this last week, but one minor thing I might have missed. I just thought of it during the break. Is everybody here? Are you guys able to hear? Okay, perfect. All right, so one thing you can do is, let's say you have a constructor like this one, right? So it takes 2 parameters. Instead of doing something like this, so I'm going to comment this out. This is also allowed, what we did, but since you already have a function that does this, so what you can do is use that function. So use this constructor as a function. So you can do this, and you pass in default name as a name, and then 1, like this. So now what this is going to do is going to use this right here and pass those parameters in. It's doing the exact same thing what we did above, but we are doing it in one line, and we're trying to reuse the code, right? So this is also allowed, and this is allowed as well. We can do the same thing here to make it more efficient. Go through everything, make every that means every constructor go through one constructor. So if you have any checks or anything, you can put all the checks in here and use that function. So what you can do is this username and then 0. Force everybody to go through the same constructor, even though the user has 4 constructor to use in our class. They're using the same constructor, but we're just forcing them to use a different. So we'll do default name, and then whatever the user passed in. Now everything is going through this constructor, but if you have any checks, like the name has to be 8 characters long, you can put that check here now. You don't have to put it in every single constructor. Does that make sense? So this way is more efficient if you do it this way, but the other way is also allowed. All right, so let's